Tigers running wild, man. And you know what? These Detroit Lions, victory week for them. Now we turn our sights towards the Sea Biscuits.
Sea Biscuits.
I hear they taste like chicken when they're fried, man. And hopefully Aaron Glenn has everything schemed up to take care of the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. It is week 4.
Oh, yeah.
And Flannel, brother, our elite booth, I got to ask you guys, what are the keys to a Lions victory? For me, don't let Geno Smith have a game. Do not let him have a game.
Yeah.
He's put up some stats to start the season, but just don't let that man have a game.
That's a big one because the Lions secondary is going to have another unique challenge. You've got DK Metcalf, you've got Tyler Lockett, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's a pretty good trio. You could argue maybe the best in the NFL, especially since it looks like Jackson Smith and Jigba has really figured it out in year 2. However, if there's one key that I have, and I think it could end up being evidence that football makes no sense, especially the NFL, is how does Jared Goff handle this Seattle Seahawks secondary? Because the Seahawks secondary is actually the best that the Lions will have faced so far. And it also has no real major injuries. We saw with the Rams, Darius Williams was out. We saw with Tampa Bay, Antoine Winfield Jr. was out, which was absolutely huge. And the Arizona Cardinals had Starling Thomas as a starting cornerback. No disrespect. I'm just saying there are levels to this. There's a difference between Starling Thomas and Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon and Trey Brown. And that's what I think it all boils down to. This is a really good secondary that the Seattle Seahawks have. However, I do think that Amon-Ra St. Brown will get open. I think Sam Laporta will get open if he plays, and I think Jamison Williams will as well. I just think it's up to Jared Goff on how he executes, because he still hasn't put together a full good game this year. He had a perfect first half against the Arizona Cardinals, and then a not-so-great second half. This is the week where I think Jared Goff puts it all together, ironically, against the best and healthiest secondary he's going to have faced all year.
Yeah, my keys to the game include what you were saying in 2 of them. My keys involve 3 T's. It involves turnovers, time of possession, and tackling. So Jared Goff has to limit his turnovers. The offense has to limit their turnovers. They got to continue to control the ball, and that means pounding the rock with David Montgomery, with Jahmyr Gibbs, and completing those short and intermediate route passes to keep the chains moving, to keep the clock running. And then it's tackling. It's tackling with K9 or Charbonnet coming out of the backfield, their trio of wide receivers, you got to shut that down. They got beat pretty bad last year with the tight ends, the Seattle tight ends. I don't know. I haven't studied up enough on Mike McDowell and what they're doing with the Seahawks offense truly this year. That'll be for tomorrow or Monday. But you got to make sure that K9 and the weapons that they have don't get yards after the catch or yards after contact if they're running. So tackling, time of possession, and turnovers.
I like that, man.
Yeah.
What a test for this secondary, this young secondary, this very, very new secondary that's probably still trying to build up some chemistry. But I've liked how tough they've appeared. You know, it's not going to be perfect in any secondary, but you look at the total points that the Lions are giving up. You look at the fact that to this point, nobody's really getting going off on this squad right now.
Right.
And this is one, though, where I'm like, you know what, Aaron Glenn, I'm hoping from a scheme perspective that you're able to mix some things up and kind of confuse the Seahawks a little bit more over what comfortability it seems like this offense have had to start the year.
Yeah, and I think you hit one perfectly on the head, tackling. And the good news about this Lions team is that this defense does it very, very well, particularly out of the secondary position. Do you trust Carlton Davis to make the big tackle? Yes. Do you trust Terrion Arnold? I would say yes. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. Pretty much all of them are not afraid to stick their nose in and make the play and not miss tackles.
For it.
Yes, absolutely. And they don't miss the tackles that allow for a breakaway or anything like that if the man they're on catches the ball. So tackling is absolutely huge. And, of course, the turnover thing. I mean, back to Jared Goff. I would like to see him – I would like for this to be the first game in which he doesn't throw an interception.
Yes.
And this isn't an indictment on Jared Goff. It's just you saw him do it a lot last season and the year before. And this year he's been a little bit turnover prone. And this is a really, really tough secondary. It's going to be tough. But that's why that's one of the reasons why I think that they're going to get it done. It's because they're going to be keyed in. They're going to lock all in. I think Ben Johnson calls his best game. And I think the Lions offense gets a bit of a get right. And like I said, I get it. The NFL is drunk On paper, it looked like they would get it against the Rams or against the Cardinals or against the Buccaneers. It was less set up well. But big week for the offense, big week for Jared Goff.
It's well stated. With the question, which Lions player will have the biggest impact versus Seahawks, my answer was going to be Jared Goff playing a clean game, a very clean game. And we know the impact that has for this Detroit Lions team. They looked very, very formidable in the playoffs and did things that a lot of us didn't know. How possible is it for this team to go in and win 2 and have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl? And this was all really predicated because Jared Goff played clean football, and not just that, confident football. The chemistry was there, the rhythm was there, and like you guys both stated, Ben Johnson and the schemes that he was calling as well. And I get it. You enter the season probably believing this is what we have right now because there are some new nuances, as it relates to the wide receivers. But they have their bread and butter, which makes me ultimately confident about this offense. That the running backs, they're stable. They're a force, man. Jared Goff, at the end of the day, has proven that he can be reliable. And Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, what are we talking about? We already know what those guys are going to be.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something that Ed O'Neill said because I think you're bringing up a good point, but I want to expand on this further. He's talking about the Seahawks secondary. Sam's not going to bring up the QBs that they have faced. That's a good point. You saw Bo Nix, you saw Jacoby Brissett, and then you saw Skylar Thompson. I understand that. I understand that the Seahawks secondary has not faced the cream of the crop, and that's putting it nicely. But when you look at a guy like Tariq Woolen, he has a track record. Devon Witherspoon was one of the best rookie defensive players in all of the NFL last year. Julian Love has been good. Rayshawn Jenkins was really, really good for the Jaguars, and so was Trey Brown as well in previous years. So it's not like I'm not just basing it off of what the Seahawks defense or their secondary has done this season. I'm also saying that they've got a track record, pretty much all of them, of being damn good defensive backs in this league, and that's why they could present a problem. But, as I said before, I think this is also the Jared Goff get-right game.
Yeah, you guys know how much I love outfield play. We get to see Parker Meadows, Winfield Perez, Riley Green, all make big catches yesterday and throughout the last couple of weeks, which is why I think one of the most important players in this game coming up is Kirby Joseph. It's Kirby Joseph. We don't know yet what Brian Branch's status is going to be, but with those trio wide receivers and the tight ends that we think they're going to continue to utilize, I think it could be a big day for Kirby, not only playing center field and maybe going and getting another pick, which I think he could definitely do, but it's also in coverage. It's also in coverage as a safety and being able to come up in the box when needed to make those tackles, which he might have to do a little bit more if Brian Branch is out.
Yeah, I would love to see a turnover created.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is a really tough wide receiver core. And if you even want to throw Noah Fant in there as a pretty good tight end, I'll throw him in there as well. It's going to be, I'm interested to see how this defense matches up. If it were me, I would probably say Carlton Davis has DK, Terrion has Lockett, and Amik has JSN. And then, tight end Branch probably, or just however, committee. I know it's not going to be perfect, but that's kind of how I see it. But Kirby, man, if the other defensive backs can be matchup sound, which for the most part they have been this season, Kirby Joseph may be just another chance to be a true free safety that can just make plays. And maybe Kirby Joseph continues on his quest to lead the NFL in interceptions. Shout out Spencer Raxter for that one. Hopefully it comes to fruition.
Kirby Joseph, man, definitely. I feel like just a guy on his way to being a star. Solid.
Yeah,
What up there, brother?
14 Grit in the chat put a good point. Can we get pressure on the D-line to support the cover one? Like, without Davenport, we don't know what's going to be with what McNeil's status is going to be. Aleem. Is Josh Pascal going to step up? Levi O. We're pretty confident Aiden Hutchinson is going to get to the quarterback, at least get his pressures. Can they get enough pressure on Geno, not only to keep him in the pocket, but also to help out that secondary stay with their boys?
Yeah.
It's weird because I don't exactly know how I would approach this because the Seahawks, they don't necessarily have the best O-line, but Charles Cross, their tackle, he's a dude.
Yeah.
Do you line up Aiden on Charles Cross, or do you have him potentially abuse a lesser than right tackle for the Seahawks and then probably count on the fact that nobody on the opposite is getting any pressure because Josh Pascal is going to get murdered by Charles Cross. No disrespect. It's not disrespect. There's levels to this. Levi Onwuzurike, if he plays edge, I still think he would get murdered by Charles Cross. However, whoever's going up against the right tackle for the Seahawks, I've got faith that whoever it is, whether it's Hutch, whether it's Pascal, whether it's Levi, whether it's whoever, whether it's James Houston gets elevated, that they're going to be able to win those matchups. So that's going to be another interesting chess match for Aaron Glenn to figure out.
Yeah, and you know what? When the quarterbacks haven't gotten the ball out quick, the one thing that I've noticed is Hutch still demands and commands so much attention that if that quarterback breaks containment or if that play goes on for just a little bit longer, you see multiple people getting into that backfield. I believe that this is a season where we're going to absolutely see the Hutch effect. I think that, yeah, you want him to have that type of help, but there is a different level that we know Hutch can get to where he can wreck all by himself. And that's what I think we're going to see in this game, too, that he's going to be a guy that it doesn't matter. You want to send the triple team, you want to send the chip, you want to send this. His pursuit is different this year. His technique, it's more sound. It's like I can see where his own work, as well as having a Terrell Williams here to help him with that type of technique in his pursuit to the quarterback, I can see that already paying dividends to the point that last year, when we said he needed help, really the difference between his sack numbers probably being a little bit more was more his pursuit. Help on the other side, well, yeah, you're always going to welcome that. But I believe this version of Hutch right here is going to cause some problems for Smith on Monday night.
I think if Aiden Hutchinson continues at the level of play that he's been at these first 3 weeks, and then even if you want to carry over the last couple of weeks of the regular season, the playoffs last year, that this defensive line will be fine. However, I will say, there are a lot of damn good edge rushers in this league who have a capable bookend. Like Myles Garrett has Zadarius Smith.
He needs one.
You know, TJ Watt has Alex Highsmith. Micah Parsons has DeMarcus Lawrence. So I don't want to put Hutch in that position to where his help, which they may have no choice this week, is Josh Pascal going against Charles Cross. I don't love it, but at the same time, I think Aiden Hutchinson himself is going to require double teams if he's going up against the Seahawks right tackle instead.